Namaste and welcome you all to yet another episode of Carnatic Talk. Hello Vijayaka, how are you?
Namaste, Vandanam, Vanakkam. Wonderful, Sai. Happy as always to be back with Carnatic Talk.
I was just thinking one question from what Jaya from Atlanta had asked last week needs to be answered, which is about your first ever concert in Delhi or where it was. So, when was your first concert?
Oh, sorry, I overlooked that. Yes, my very first concert was when I was 12 years old. There is a Hanuman Mandir on Irvin Road, where all the state emporia, I don't know what the road is called now. There's a Ganesha temple and there's a Hanuman temple. So the Hanuman temple used to celebrate Hanuman Jayanti, and this usually happens in January when it's really cold in Delhi. And my first concert was in 1972.
My goodness. And do you remember anything about the concert? Like who accompanied you? How long was it? What did you
Oh,
sing?
absolutely, absolutely. Sorry, it was in 1974, not 72. So I was in class 7, and on the violin was Vijaykumar. He was the son of a good musician in Delhi, and he later on went on to learn from Lalgudi sir. And he was in class 8. And on the Mirdangam was now Dr. Setu Madhavan, who later became a professor of biotechnology. He was in class 9. So we were in class 7, 8, and 9. And that was my very first kacheri. And we did this consecutively for the next 3 years. And that was an amazing experience.
What did you sing?
I remember that I sang Shanmuga Priya and I sang Sharavana Bhava. And it was very interesting because, my parents have always been very involved in my music. And my father particularly, so he would be sitting and watching every, movement of mine to see what I'm doing and generally in concern. So you have no experience of singing with Pakavadyam, and this is the first time. You may have rehearsed once or twice because you're young children, but nevertheless, we have our own padandrams, right? So I'm singing this song. Puramerita Paraman Netri Kanil Udita Puramerita Paraman Netri Kanil Udita. So far, so good. Now, the violin, Vijay Kumar had learned it differently. Puramerita Paraman Netri Kanil Udita Puramerita Paraman Netri Kanil Udita. And I'm a young kid, all of 12, never sung in a kacheri before with Pakavadyam. From the second line, I started singing whatever he was playing. And you should have seen my father's face. He was aghast. What's wrong with her? What is she doing? And he was more worried whether I'd be able to come back to my own padandaram and, end the song suitably. So all kinds of comedy happened in my first concert. And it's interesting and important for me to remember when I rap my students on their knuckles for messing up something.
Wow. That's wonderful. And thank you, Jaya, for taking us down that memory lane. It's always nice to remember your first concert. As Vijayaka was talking about the first concert, I was thinking, wow, how it must have been. What do you think the concert scene is like today, 1974 to 2020? Quick fast forward. How is it today? What is the scene like?
That's a very appropriate word you've used. Fast forward. Things are indeed moving very fast. And I think everything has changed. Lifestyle has changed, from the way we cook and eat and serve food to the way we are singing. Things, there's been a metamorphosis, I think, of sorts. So, long time back, kacheris were, like we were talking about Rajarathnam Pillai earlier, where the Nadaswaram Vidwans would play for hours. Concerts would happen for hours. Another legend is Shri Madurai Somu. You know, his concerts are legend, where he would start at 10 in the night and go on till about 4 or 5 in the morning. You know, take a bus, go to the next town or village, and again repeat the same performance that night. Oh my God. I mean, that kind of stamina, not only for the performer, but also for the listener, was there.
Yeah.
You need stamina to listen to a kacheri, right? So now we need a lot of supplements. We need a lot of vitamins. Nobody can. I mean, you look at a YouTube recording. Nobody has an attention span of more than 5 seconds or whatever, 1 minute at the max. So kacheris have also become very different because most people are working, and then you have a long day, you have a rough ride, and then you make the effort of going to a hall and sitting and listening to a kacheri. And then earlier you had joint families where everything was taken care of by someone or the other. Now you have to, halfway through the Taniyavartam, you're wondering, oh my God, what is there for dinner? Do I have to reheat it? Do I have to go home and cook? Things like that. So all these things, I think, are important factors. So kacheris have shrunk in size, from being such long duration concerts. So obviously, when your duration changes, the fare that you offer also changes. Right. So I've heard of, I mean, I've not heard these concerts, but I've heard of times when people like Alatur brothers would take a Ragam Tanam Pallavi and develop the raga. I mean, we have recordings of GNB singing Shanmugapriya Ragam alone for 45 minutes, in the Ragam Tanam Pallavi, So those things are now history. And then you have, I've heard about how Alatur brothers or Pallavi Erthindu, they would do the Neraval, and then they would do the Trikalam, then they would do Tishram Kalam, then they would do Tishram El Kalam, then they would do Chatushra Tishram, and all kinds of sophistications. And the Pallavi suite itself would take at least an hour and a half to 2. And we should remember that the Kacheri would have already featured a main piece with an elaborate Alapana, Neraval Swaram, and Taniyavartam.
Yeah.
And then you have the Ragam Tanam Pallavi. So today we don't have the I don't know if you can call it the luxury of indulging in that. So we now have to present everything in 2 to 2.5 hours. And in fact, I am told in Hindustani music, it is pretty much about an hour and a half, which is the norm for a concert.
Yeah.
So here it's very different now. So, and then, the sense of timelessness, the sense of leisure that you had is now also reduced because you don't have that kind of leisure. So I personally feel the Saukhyam component also is very measured in concerts now. And there's a lot more energy, there's a lot more speed, there's a lot more adrenaline in kacheris. And I think after a long day, that really seems to pep up people. So a lot of people enjoy that. And so I think there is also a shift in taste, and definitely the reduction in duration of concert has made a big dent in the kind of presentations we see.
I've heard my grandmother or great grandmother or great grandfather, invariably people of that generation say, when I was 7 years old, I've seen Dandapani Deshikar sing for hours and stuff. Now, today's kids, do you think when they grow up and become 60, 70, that young crowd at a concert, we discussed this in the first episode also, but do you consider the variety in a lot of entertainment like Netflix and, I mean, I think in those days it was the only form of engagement outside. There weren't too many multiplexes to go to and stuff like that. Do you think that also plays a role in it, that today there is a variety of things for kids to do and concerts are probably one of them and not the only option?
Oh, definitely, definitely. But in a way, I think that's also very good because then you're listening by choice. See, earlier you were listening by default, right? Now, when I have so much choice, if I'm choosing Carnatic music, it's because I have a liking for it. And there are any number of children who are learning and listening and performing. And Sai, we should remember Carnatic music has come down to us from, I mean, we have texts which are dated to, 4th century BC or earlier, which spoke of a sophisticated system of music, giving, techniques on voice culture and everything like that. And today we are in 2020. So I don't think we need to worry about the future of Carnatic music or anything like that. And I think there are enough people who are making the choice of learning or listening to Carnatic music.
Wonderful. I mean, any day the past is, considered golden, and I really like to, talk a little bit about that. So we spoke about Rajarathnam Pillai in the earlier episode, but I was wondering, where did he learn music from? Who were his gurus? Because I don't have answers to that. Because his Todi and Kalyani are like the be all and the end all. After that, you can't process much. So it will be nice to know a little bit more about him, if you can please enlighten us.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think it's very important for us to also know our history about people who have contributed so much to our arts, right? So, Rajarathnam Pillai initially learned vocal music, and he learned from his uncle Kadiresi Pillai, who was a well-known musician of his times. But he also learned from Tirukodi Kaval Krishna Iyer, and he learned from Veena Dhanammal. They were his gurus. And he actually was a very good vocalist. And like I said, I have read about him more in articles and some lectures that people have presented. I've heard about him. And apparently he was a very good vocalist with very good ucharipu. He used to be very clear with the enunciation of the words, whether it was Sanskrit or Tamil compositions that he was singing. But he started playing the Nadaswaram, and he played apparently one morning in the temple, and he used to play Bhupalam, which is one of the morning ragas. And this became so popular that people used to come to the temple just to listen to him. So I think he had to pack up his singing
Vocal.
and take very seriously to the Nadaswaram. And I think that was Nadaswaram and Carnatic music's gain that he brought in such a revolution. He was the first to change the length of the instrument, and he changed the Shruti. And he used to play at G sharp. Anjarakatte Shruti he used to play. And I think these were the changes that made it more concert instrument. See, traditionally, Nadaswaram has never been viewed as a concert instrument. It has always been a temple instrument, and it's a very majestic, it's a Rajavadyam, the Nadaswaram and the Tavil that accompanies the Nadaswaram. And they're rich in volume. So it was very suitable for temples with wide open spaces. So now when you're in a contained space like an auditorium, you need very good modulation of sound for you to be able to enjoy a Nadaswaram recital in a confined space. And I think till Rajarathnam Pillai came and he played this, it was not really a concert instrument. So the fact that Nadaswarams were featured as Carnatic music concerts, I think that credit itself goes to Rajarathnam Pillai. There is an interview of his on All India Radio where there's a very interesting incident that he refers to. So he used to learn vocal music from Tirukodi Kaval Krishna Iyer. And apparently he was singing Begada once, and he played the Nishadam flat. He got hit on his nose with a bow.
Oh my.
Tirukodi Kaval Krishna Iyer gave him a rap on his nose with a violin bow.
Thankfully, it was violin and not another swaram that he got hit with.
It was a different time, so not to judge, but how strict teachers were and how exacting they were. Today you can't even dream of reprimanding a child very strongly. And if you are in the US or something, you'd probably get hauled in. The child will call 911 and
I know.
So
I'm very interested to listen to that vocal version of, Rajarathnam Pillai. We have a lot of his Nadaswaram music around. So I think to conclude today's episode, it would be very apt to play his vocal music. And thanks
Oh,
so much.
absolutely. Absolutely. Just a couple of things while we are still on Rajaratnam. Apparently he was in Delhi on August 15th, 1947, when we got our independence. And as Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and others were coming in, he was supposed to play for 10 minutes. But they were so mesmerized by his playing that he played for 60 minutes.
Right.
And how wonderful is that to hear of how melodious and how beautiful it must have been that people lost track of time listening to him. He was also, he was an actor. He's acted in a couple of films. He acted as Kavi Kalamegam in a movie, and then he played the role of a Nadaswaram Vidwan in another movie called Tirunilakanta. And he was the first one who dressed up, like any other musician. Normally, Nadaswaram Vidwans would be bare upper body, or they would just wear an angavastram and wear the veshti. But he was the first who started dressing up with wearing a shirt, and sometimes he would even wear trousers. But he was also very popular here in Mylapore, where he used to play every year for the Arvati Mover festival. And apparently this did get to him, and his demands started getting higher and higher. And at some point, he regarded himself on par with Kapalishwara.
Oh, wow.
And then I think it was done away with. But I do believe that, Nadaswaram and artists like Rajarathnam Pillai have contributed so much to the art. But unfortunately, we don't get to hear their concerts in a regular kacheri. Even during the season or during other concert series, very rarely is it that a Nadaswaram concert is featured. But now we do have many organizations, especially like Parivadini, and even in association with Brahmagana Sabha, they have been holding competitions to encourage Nadaswaram. There have been instances of where, the families are in penury, and there is the story of Rajaratnam himself, who went and pawned his Todi Ragam for money. There was a time when he didn't have money and he needed a mortgage. He had nothing to give for the mortgage. So he went and pledged his Todi Ragam. And he said, I will not play Todi till such time. Can you believe it? And it's very sad, having touched such zeniths, that a person of the caliber of Rajarathnam Pillai actually died in penury. Anyway, let's set that aside, and let's listen to this wonderful vocal rendition that you have of Rajarathnam Pillai.
Absolutely. Until we meet again, thank you so much, Akka. I really should, mention my special thanks to you, because we don't know so much about this great musician, and you've shed a lot of light on him. And I'm sure the Rasikas would be grateful to you and indebted to you for doing this lovely research.
Absolutely a labor of love for me, Sai. Thank you so much. Namaste. Vandanam. Vanak.
Jama